I 42F. Don't even know where to begin with this, but I need outside perspective because my entire world has been turned upside down in the span of 24 hours. My husband Mark, 44M, and I have been together for 17 years, married for 15, and I thought we had a solid, loving relationship. We have 2 kids together, Sophie, 13F, and Lucas, 10M, and what I believed was a happy family life. Last night changed everything, and I'm sitting here at 3 a.m. typing this because I can't sleep and I feel like I'm losing my mind. Let me start with some background about our relationship. Mark and I met in college when we were both 25. We were friends first for about 2 years before we started dating. He was this incredibly charming, funny guy who could make anyone laugh, and I was completely smitten with him. We had this amazing courtship period where he'd write me these beautiful letters. This was before texting was really a thing. Bring me flowers just because, and we'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing. We got engaged after dating for 2 years and married a year later in 2008. The early years of our marriage were wonderful. We were both establishing our careers. I'm a marketing manager, he's an architect, traveling together, and just enjoying being young and in love. We bought our first house in 2010, had Sophie in 2011, and Lucas in 2014. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect suburban family. Throughout our marriage, Mark has always been attentive and loving. He still brings me coffee in bed most mornings, remembers important dates, and we've maintained what I thought was a good intimate relationship. We've had our rough patches like any couple, financial stress when Mark's firm went through layoffs in 2016, the usual parenting disagreements, and the normal ups and downs of a long marriage. But we always worked through things together, and I genuinely believed we were solid. Mark travels occasionally for work. Maybe once every couple of months, he'll have a project that requires him to be out of town for a few days. He's always been good about calling when he's away, texting throughout the day, and bringing the kids little gifts when he comes home. I never had any reason to be suspicious or worried about these trips. Our love life has always been good. Not fireworks every time after 15 years of marriage, but consistent and loving. We probably have sex 2 to 3 times a week on average, which I know is more than a lot of couples our age. Mark has always been affectionate and attentive in bed, and I felt desired and loved. Now, here's what happened last night that started this nightmare. We had put the kids to bed around 9 p.m. after a pretty normal Tuesday evening, homework, dinner, TV time as a family. Mark and I were both tired, but in a good mood. We were cuddling on the couch watching Netflix when things started getting romantic. We went upstairs to our bedroom and got intimate. Everything was completely normal and beautiful until the very end. Right at the end, Mark yelled out, "Oh God, Victoria," instead of my name, which is Sarah. I froze completely. Mark didn't seem to realize what he'd said at first. He was still caught up in the moment. But when he looked at my face, he immediately knew something was wrong. "What's wrong, babe?" he asked, still breathing hard. I just stared at him. "Did you just call me Victoria?" The look that crossed his face was pure panic. He went completely white and started stammering. "What? No, I said Sarah. I said your name." But I knew what I heard. "Mark, you call me Victoria." "Who is Victoria?" He sat up and ran his hands through his hair, which is something he does when he's really stressed. "Sarah, I swear I said your name. Maybe it sounded different because, I don't know, maybe you misheard." I got out of bed and put on my robe. "Don't lie to me. I know what I heard." "Who is Victoria?" That's when Mark completely broke down. He started crying actual tears, not just getting emotional. I'd only seen him cry like that a handful of times in our entire relationship. He kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over again. I sat down on the edge of the bed and said, "Mark, you need to tell me what's going on right now." What came out next has destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Mark told me that about 10 years ago, in 2014, the same year Lucas was born, he had an affair with a woman named Victoria Chin. She was a client at his architecture firm. Her company was building a new office complex, and Mark was the lead architect on the project. The affair lasted for about 6 months, from March 2014 to September 2014. I was pregnant with Lucas during the early part of 2014 and gave birth in June. So Mark was having an affair with this woman while I was pregnant with our second child and during the first few months of Lucas's life. According to Mark, the affair started innocently with work dinners and drinks after long meetings. Victoria was going through a divorce at the time, and Mark said she was vulnerable and needed someone to talk to. He claimed that I was focused on the pregnancy and Sophie, and that he felt neglected and unimportant. The physical affair began in April 2014, when I was about 7 months pregnant. Mark said they would meet at hotels during lunch breaks or after work. He said Victoria understood that he wasn't going to leave his family, and that she wasn't looking for anything serious either since she was dealing with her own divorce. The affair ended in September 2014 when Victoria's divorce was finalized and she moved to Seattle for a new job. Mark said they had no contact after that and that he'd tried to forget it ever happened. But here's the part that really kills me. Mark said that Victoria was the most passionate and uninhibited woman he'd ever been with. He said their physical connection was unlike anything he'd experienced and that he'd never felt so desired by anyone. He said she made him feel young and exciting again in a way that he hadn't felt since we were first dating. When I asked why he was thinking about her during our intimate moment last night, he broke down even more. He admitted that he still thinks about Victoria sometimes during sex with me. He said it's not that he doesn't love me or find me attractive, but that the memories of their physical relationship were so intense that they sometimes come back when he's being intimate. I asked him how often this happens, and he said not often, but more than never. He couldn't give me a specific number, but admitted that Victoria crosses his mind during our intimate moments, maybe once or twice a month. I was completely devastated. Not only had my husband cheated on me during one of the most vulnerable times in my life, but he'd been essentially using memories of his affair partner to enhance our sex life for the past 10 years without me knowing. I asked Mark if there had been other affairs, and he swore that Victoria was the only one. I asked if he'd been in contact with her at all over the years, and he said no. He didn't even know where she was living now or what she was doing. I asked him why he never told me about the affair, and he said he was too ashamed and didn't want to hurt me unnecessarily since it was over and he'd never planned to do it again. He said he'd made peace with his mistake and thought it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. The conversation went on for hours. I asked him details I probably didn't want to know, where they met, how often, what hotels they went to. Mark answered everything, crying through most of it. He kept apologizing and saying how sorry he was, how much he regretted it, how much he loved me and our family. But the damage was done. I felt like I was looking at a stranger. This man I'd been married to for 15 years, who I trusted completely, who I'd had 2 children with, had been living with this massive secret our entire married life. And not just the secret of the affair itself, but the ongoing secret that he was thinking about another woman during our intimate moments. I couldn't sleep in our bed last night. I went to the guest room, and Mark didn't try to follow me. I could hear him crying in our bedroom for a long time. This morning was awful. The kids were getting ready for school like it was any other day, and Mark and I had to pretend everything was normal. Mark made breakfast and packed lunches like always, but we barely looked at each other. When he tried to kiss me goodbye before leaving for work, I turned away, and I saw the hurt in his eyes. After the kids left for school, I've just been sitting here trying to process everything. I keep thinking about all the times over the past 10 years when we were making love, and Mark might have been thinking about Victoria. I feel so violated and humiliated. I also keep thinking about 2014. Lucas was born in June, and I remember that summer being really difficult. I was exhausted from having a newborn, dealing with a 3-year-old Sophie, and trying to recover from childbirth. Mark seemed distant sometimes, and I attributed it to stress from work and adjusting to having 2 kids. Now I know he was probably comparing me to his affair partner and feeling guilty about what he was doing. There were specific things from that time period that now make sense in a horrible way. Mark went through this phase where he was suddenly very interested in trying new things in bed, positions and activities that were outside our normal routine. I was flattered at the time and thought he was just trying to keep our relationship exciting despite having a newborn. Now I realize he was probably bringing things Victoria had taught him into our bedroom. I also remember that he started working late more often during that period, and he'd come home sometimes smelling like he'd showered elsewhere. He said the gym at his office building had better facilities than ours at home, so he'd started using it more often. I never questioned it. There was also a business trip to Portland in August 2014 that he came back from seeming really sad and withdrawn. He said the project had been stressful, and he was just tired. I now wonder if that was when Victoria told him she was moving to Seattle, or if they had some kind of goodbye encounter. Looking back, there were probably signs, but I was so focused on our new baby and managing our household that I didn't pick up on them. Or maybe I didn't want to see them, because I trusted Mark completely. The worst part is thinking about all the conversations we've had over the years about fidelity and trust. Mark has always been the one to joke about how he'd never understand guys who cheat, and how he was so lucky to have found a soulmate, so he never felt tempted by other women. He's made comments about friends or celebrities who've had affairs, always taking the moral high ground about how cheating was unforgivable and showed a lack of character. Just last year, when my friend Jessica found out her husband was having an emotional affair with a coworker, Mark was so supportive and angry on my behalf. He said things like, "I can't imagine betraying someone you love like that, and Jessica deserves so much better than a man who can't keep his vows." The whole time, he'd been living with the secret of his own affair. I keep wondering what else Mark might be hiding from me. If he could keep this secret for 10 years, what else don't I know about him? Has he been faithful since Victoria, or have there been others that he just hasn't accidentally revealed? When he travels for work, is he really working, or is he meeting other women? I also can't stop thinking about the timing. I was pregnant and then caring for a newborn while my husband was having passionate hotel encounters with another woman. I was exhausted, emotional, and completely devoted to our growing family while he was getting his needs met elsewhere. It feels like such a betrayal not just of our marriage vows, but of our partnership as parents. The detail about him still thinking about Victoria during our intimate moments is almost worse than the original affair. At least the affair ended 10 years ago, but this means that our physical relationship has been tainted this entire time without me knowing. How many times have I felt close and connected to Mark after making love, not knowing that he'd been fantasizing about another woman? I've been trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to kick Mark out of the house immediately and file for divorce. How can I ever trust him again? How can I ever be intimate with him knowing that he might be thinking about Victoria? But another part of me is thinking about our kids, our 15-year marriage, and the life we've built together. Mark seems genuinely remorseful, and he swears the affair is ancient history. Maybe this is something we could work through with counseling? I called in sick to work today because I can't function. I keep going back and forth between rage and devastation. One minute I'm furious that Mark could lie to me for 10 years, and the next minute I'm heartbroken that the man I thought I knew doesn't really exist. I also keep wondering about Victoria. What was she like? Was she prettier than me? Better in bed? More interesting? Mark said she was passionate and uninhibited. Am I not those things? Is that why he strayed? I looked up Victoria Chin online and found her LinkedIn profile. She's 41 now, so she was 31 during the affair, works as a marketing director in Seattle, and is remarried with 2 young kids. She's beautiful in a polished, professional way that's completely different from my more casual mom-style look. In her profile photo, she looks confident and sophisticated. I can see why Mark was attracted to her. Part of me wants to reach out to Victoria, but I know that would be crazy and wouldn't accomplish anything positive. The affair was 10 years ago. She's moved on with her life, and contacting her would only create more drama. I haven't told anyone about this yet. I'm too ashamed and confused. My best friend Emma would be supportive, but I'm not ready to say the words out loud yet. I'm also worried about the kids finding out. Sophie is 13 and old enough to understand what an affair means. I don't want to destroy her image of her father, but I also don't know how to pretend everything is normal. Mark texted me around lunchtime asking if we could talk tonight after the kids go to bed. I haven't responded yet because I don't know what to say. What is there to talk about? He cheated, he lied, and he's been using memories of his affair partner during our intimate moments for a decade. What conversation could possibly make this better? I'm also wondering about practical things. If we get divorced, what happens to our house? How do we split custody? How do I explain to the kids why mommy and daddy aren't living together anymore? Sophie has always been so proud of having parents who actually like each other compared to some of her friends whose parents are divorced or obviously unhappy. This would shatter her world too. But I also don't know if I can stay married to someone who could keep such a massive secret. Every time Mark has told me he loves me over the past 10 years, was it genuine, or was he thinking about how I compared to Victoria? Every time we've made love, was I enough for him, or was he wishing I was someone else? The trust is completely broken. Even if Mark swears he's been faithful since 2014, how would I ever know for sure? How could I ever feel secure in our relationship again? I keep thinking about our wedding vows. We promised to forsake all others, to be faithful in good times and bad, in sickness and in health. Mark broke those vows while I was literally sick with morning sickness and then recovering from childbirth. How could he stand at the altar and make those promises knowing he was capable of breaking them? There's also the issue of our sexual relationship going forward. How could I ever be intimate with Mark again knowing that he might be thinking about Victoria? How could I enjoy our physical connection knowing that he's been comparing me to another woman this whole time? I found myself looking in the mirror today and wondering what Mark sees when he looks at me. Do I compare favorably to Victoria, or am I just the familiar wife he settled for? When he tells me I'm beautiful, does he mean it, or is he thinking about how much more beautiful Victoria was? The kids came home from school a few hours ago, and I had to pretend everything was normal. Sophie asked why I looked sad, and I told her I was just tired. Lucas wanted help with his math homework, and I struggled to focus on his problems while my mind was spinning. Mark came home at his usual time and tried to act normal too, but there was this horrible tension between us. We managed to get through dinner and helping the kids with homework, but every ordinary interaction felt forced and fake. Now the kids are in bed, and Mark is waiting for me in the living room. I told him I needed a few minutes to collect my thoughts, which is why I'm writing this post. I need outside perspective before I go downstairs and have what might be the most important conversation of my marriage. Part of me wants to fight for our relationship. We have 15 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a life we've built together. Mark says the affair is ancient history and that he's never strayed since. Maybe this is something we could work through with intensive couples therapy, but part of me feels like the marriage is already over. How do you come back from this level of betrayal and deception? How do you rebuild trust when it's been so completely shattered? How do you continue being intimate with someone who's been fantasizing about someone else during your most private moments? I also keep thinking about what this means for our kids. Sophie and Lucas worship their father. He's an involved, loving dad who coaches Lucas's soccer team and never misses Sophie's school plays. How do I reconcile the cheating husband with the devoted father? How do I protect the kids from being hurt by this while also protecting myself? There's also the question of whether Mark would cheat again. He was 34 when he had the affair with Victoria, young enough to claim it was a mistake, old enough to know better. He's 44 now, more mature, more settled. But he's also proven he's capable of deception on a massive scale. If the right circumstances arose, would he cheat again? I think about couples I know who've survived infidelity. My aunt and uncle went through something similar 20 years ago, and they're still married and seem happy now. But they were younger then, and the affair was discovered and dealt with immediately. Mark and I have been living a lie for 10 years without me knowing it. I keep coming back to the fact that Mark said Victoria was the most passionate and uninhibited woman he'd ever been with. That statement is seared into my brain. It means I'm not the most passionate woman he's been with. Our entire physical relationship has been him settling for less than what he experienced with Victoria. How do I live with that knowledge? How do I ever feel confident and sexy with my husband again, knowing that I'll never measure up to his affair partner? I also can't stop wondering why Mark said Victoria's name last night. We've been making love regularly for 10 years since the affair ended. Why did her name come out now? Was there something different about last night that reminded him more strongly of her? Has he been thinking about her more lately? The timing seems suspicious to me. Mark had a work trip to Seattle last month, the same city where Victoria lives now. Did he see her? Contact her? Is there more to this story that I still don't know? When I asked Mark about the Seattle trip last night, he swore he didn't see Victoria and didn't even know if she still lived there. But how can I believe anything he says now? He lied to me for 10 years about the affair. What else might he be lying about? I've been researching infidelity recovery online today, and everything I read says that the cheating partner needs to be completely transparent and willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild trust. That means giving up privacy, being accountable for time and whereabouts, and answering any questions the betrayed partner has, no matter how painful. But I also read that the betrayed partner needs to be willing to forgive and work toward rebuilding the relationship. I don't know if I'm capable of that right now. The hurt is too fresh and too deep. There's also the issue of telling our families. Mark's parents have always treated me like a daughter, and my parents adore Mark. They're all going to be devastated if we get divorced. But they're also going to want to know why, and I don't know if I'm prepared to share the details of Mark's affair with everyone. Our friend group is also going to be affected. We have couple friends who we socialize with regularly, and divorce would change all of those dynamics. Some people will take sides, some will feel uncomfortable around us, and some will probably distance themselves from the drama altogether. I keep thinking about what I want my life to look like going forward. Do I want to be a divorced single mother at 42? Do I want to start over with dating and trying to find someone new? Do I want to go through the trauma and expensive divorce when Mark seems genuinely remorseful and willing to work on our marriage? But I also think about what staying married would mean. Could I ever really trust Mark again? Could I ever feel secure and loved? Or would I always be wondering if he was thinking about someone else? Could I handle the years of therapy and hard work it would take to rebuild our relationship? There's also the question of forgiveness. I was raised to believe that forgiveness is important and that marriages are worth fighting for. But I was also raised to believe that trust and honesty are fundamental to any relationship. How do I reconcile those values when they're pulling me in different directions? I think about our wedding day and how happy and hopeful I was. I truly believed I was marrying my best friend and soulmate, someone who would never hurt me the way Mark has hurt me. That naive, trusting version of myself feels so far away now. I also think about the future I'd imagine for us. Growing old together, becoming grandparents, celebrating our 25th and 50th wedding anniversaries. All of those dreams feel shattered now, even if we stay together, because they were based on a marriage that I now know was built on a lie. The hardest part might be that I still love Mark. Despite everything he's done, despite the lies and betrayal, I still love the man I thought I married. I love the father he is to our children, the partner he's been in building our life together, the person who makes me laugh and holds me when I'm sad. But I don't know if love is enough to overcome this level of betrayal. I don't know if I can separate the Mark I love from the Mark who cheated on me while I was pregnant and then lied about it for 10 years. I hear Mark moving around downstairs, probably wondering when I'm going to come down and talk to him. I know I can't put this conversation off forever, but I'm terrified of what's going to happen next. Are we going to fight? Are we going to cry? Are we going to decide to work on our marriage or end it? I also don't know what I want him to say. An apology seems inadequate after 10 years of lies. Promises to never cheat again feel hollow when he already broke that promise once. Declarations of love feel tainted when I know he was fantasizing about another woman during our intimate moments. Maybe what I want most is for him to acknowledge the full scope of what he's done, not just the affair itself, but the decade of deception that followed. I want him to understand that he didn't just cheat on me 10 years ago. He's been cheating me out of an honest marriage every day since then. I want him to understand that saying Victoria's name last night wasn't just an embarrassing slip-up. It was a revelation that our entire physical relationship has been built on a foundation of lies and comparisons to another woman. I want him to understand that asking me to forgive and move on isn't just asking me to get over a past affair. It's asking me to rebuild my entire understanding of who he is and what our marriage means. Most of all, I want to know if the man I fell in love with and married still exists, or if he's been a carefully constructed facade designed to hide the man who is capable of such deception. I guess I'm about to find out. Update, 3 days later, asterisk. I'm updating because a lot of people have been asking what happened after our conversation, and because writing this out has been helpful for processing everything that's occurred. Mark and I talked for over 4 hours that first night. It was the most difficult conversation of our entire relationship, but also probably the most honest we've ever been with each other. Mark started by taking full responsibility for the affair and for hiding it for 10 years. He didn't make excuses or try to blame me or our circumstances. He acknowledged that cheating on me while I was pregnant was especially cruel, and that continuing to think about Victoria during our intimate moments was an ongoing betrayal that I had every right to be furious about. He also revealed some details that I hadn't known. The affair started earlier than he initially told me. It actually began in February 2014, when I was about 5 months pregnant. Victoria had been flirting with him for weeks before anything physical happened, and Mark admitted that he was flattered by the attention and felt excited in a way he hadn't felt since we were first dating. Mark said that he'd convinced himself at the time that what he was doing wasn't that bad because Victoria knew he wasn't going to leave his family, and because he still loved me and was excited about our baby. He said he compartmentalized the affair as something separate from our marriage, which he now realizes was completely wrong and selfish. The affair ended not just because Victoria moved to Seattle, but because Mark said he was starting to develop real feelings for her, which scared him. He realized that if he continued the relationship, he might actually consider leaving me and the kids, which he didn't want to do. So when Victoria got the job offer in Seattle, he encouraged her to take it and didn't try to maintain contact. Mark also admitted that he'd been tempted to cheat on other occasions over the years, particularly during times when we were stressed or arguing a lot. He said he'd never acted on those temptations, but acknowledged that he wasn't the faithful husband I'd believed him to be even in his thoughts and desires. Most importantly, Mark agreed to complete transparency going forward. He gave me all his passwords, agreed to share his location at all times, and said he would answer any question I had, no matter how painful. He also agreed to individual therapy to figure out why he'd been capable of such deception, and couples therapy for us to work through this together. I told Mark that I needed time and space to decide whether I wanted to try to save our marriage. I said that his affair wasn't ancient history to me. It was news that I'd just learned 48 hours ago, and I needed to process it like the fresh betrayal it was to me. We agreed that Mark would move into our guest room for the foreseeable future, and that we'd tell the kids he was having trouble sleeping and didn't want to disturb me. We also agreed not to make any major decisions about our marriage for at least 30 days, to give me time to work through my initial emotions. The next morning, I called my best friend Emma and told her everything. She was shocked and angry on my behalf, but also supportive of whatever decision I wanted to make. Having someone to talk to who wasn't emotionally invested in the outcome was incredibly helpful. I also called a therapist and made an appointment for individual counseling. I realized that I needed professional help to work through the trauma of discovering Mark's affair and lies, regardless of whether we stayed together or not. The past 3 days have been a roller coaster of emotions. I've gone through periods of rage where I wanted to throw Mark out immediately, periods of sadness where I've cried for hours, and periods of numbness where I couldn't feel anything at all. The hardest part has been pretending everything is normal for the kids. Sophie has noticed the tension between Mark and me, and she's asked several times if we're okay. I've been vague, saying that we're working through some issues, but that we love her and Lucas very much and that they don't need to worry. Mark has been trying to give me space while also showing that he's committed to working on our marriage. He's been handling more of the household responsibilities, giving me time alone when I need it, and being patient when I'm cold or distant with him. Yesterday, I had my first therapy session, which was incredibly helpful. My therapist helped me understand that what I'm experiencing is a form of trauma and that my intense emotional reactions are completely normal for someone who's discovered a long-term deception. She also helped me think through what I need from Mark in order to consider reconciliation. The list is long. Complete honesty about everything, individual therapy to address his capacity for deception, couples therapy, accountability for his whereabouts and activities, and time to rebuild trust gradually. Most importantly, she helped me understand that I don't have to make any permanent decisions right now. I can take things one day at a time and see how I feel as I process this trauma and as Mark demonstrates his commitment to change. I'm still not sure what's going to happen to our marriage. Some days I think we might be able to work through this, and other days I feel like the trust is too broken to repair. But I'm grateful that we're both committed to being honest with each other now, even if that honesty came 10 years too late. The kids still don't know what's really going on, but we've scheduled a session with a family therapist to help us figure out how and when to talk to them about our marital problems. I don't want them to be blindsided if we decide to separate, but I also don't want to burden them with adult problems they're too young to understand. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time and focusing on my own healing. Whether Mark and I stay together or not, I need to work through the trauma of this betrayal and figure out who I am outside of the marriage I thought I had. Final update, 6 months later. I wanted to provide a final update for anyone who's been following this story, as I know many people have been wondering how things turned out. Mark and I are still together, but our marriage looks very different than it did 6 months ago. We've both been in individual therapy, and we've been doing couples counseling twice a week. It's been the hardest work either of us has ever done, but we've made significant progress. Mark has been completely transparent about everything, his phone, his whereabouts, his work activities, even his thoughts and feelings about our relationship. He's also been doing intensive individual therapy to understand why he was capable of deceiving me for so long and to develop better coping mechanisms for stress and temptation. Through therapy, we've learned that Mark's affair wasn't just about physical attraction or feeling neglected. It was about him struggling with the transition to being a father of two, feeling overwhelmed by responsibility, and using the affair as an escape from reality. None of that excuses what he did, but understanding it has helped us address the underlying issues. We've also worked on rebuilding our physical intimacy, which has been probably the most challenging part of our recovery. It took months before I felt comfortable being intimate with Mark again, and we had to completely rebuild that aspect of our relationship from scratch. We now have better communication about our needs and desires than we ever had before, ironically. The issue of Mark thinking about Victoria during sex was addressed through both individual and couples therapy. Mark has learned techniques for staying present and focused on our relationship, and he's been completely honest with me about his thoughts and feelings. It's been several months since he's mentioned thinking about anyone else during our intimate moments. We told the kids about our marital problems in age-appropriate ways. Sophie, who's now 14, understood more than Lucas, but both kids have been incredibly resilient. We assured them that whatever happened between us, they were loved and would be taken care of. Family therapy has helped us all communicate better and maintain stability for the children. The question of whether I've truly forgiven Mark is complicated. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, and there are still days when I feel angry or hurt about the affair and lies. But I've learned that forgiveness is an ongoing process, not a one-time decision. I choose to forgive Mark daily, and some days that choice is easier than others. Trust is still being rebuilt gradually. Mark has been completely trustworthy for 6 months now, but I know it will take years before I feel completely secure in our relationship again. We have systems in place for accountability, and Mark has been patient with my need for reassurance and transparency. I've also done a lot of work on myself through individual therapy. I've learned that I tend to avoid conflict and difficult conversations, which may have contributed to problems in our marriage going unaddressed. I've worked on being more assertive about my needs and more direct in my communication. Looking back, I think discovering Mark's affair was both the worst and best thing that could have happened to our marriage. It was devastating and traumatic, but it also forced us to be completely honest with each other for the first time in years. We're both different people now than we were 6 months ago, and our relationship is stronger in many ways than it was before. I won't pretend it's been easy or that everything is perfect now. There are still difficult days, and rebuilding trust is slow work. But Mark has proven his commitment to our marriage through consistent actions over many months, and I've learned that I'm stronger and more resilient than I thought I was. For anyone going through something similar, I want to say that there's no right or wrong choice about whether to stay or leave after infidelity. Every situation is different, and you have to do what's right for you and your family. For us, working through this together has been worth it, but I completely understand why many people choose differently. The most important thing I've learned is that healing from betrayal takes time, and you can't rush the process. Whether you stay together or separate, you need support, professional help, and patience with yourself as you work through the trauma. 6 months ago, I thought my marriage was over. Today, I'm cautiously optimistic about our future together. We're not the same couple we were before, but maybe that's a good thing. The couple we were before was built on secrets and assumptions. The couple we're becoming is built on honesty, hard work, and a choice to love each other despite our flaws and mistakes. Time will tell if we can make it work long term, but for now, we're taking it one day at a time and choosing each other every day. That feels like enough.